where will you find resilience? REdeploy.
Guten Abend, ich bin Kate Pan und ich spreche Deutsch. Wie viele Leute hier sprechen auch Deutsch? Ja, gut. Bitte kein Übersetzen, weil ich will einen Punkt machen. Nicht ein Punkt, sondern ein Gefühl machen. Ich sage nicht sehr gut Deutsch, aber es geht. Ich meine, diese Sprache habe ich übersetzt vielleicht 2 Seiten oder vielleicht 3, aber naja, wenn du etwas denkst, etwas kommt und dann etwas anderes kommt, es ist komisch zu fühlen. Und das ist, was ich sprechen über will. Hi, I'm Kate Pan and I speak German. How many of you speak German out there? There's a couple of you, right? I had you raise your hands before. My mom always said, don't speak German if not everybody in the room speaks German. I didn't take her advice this time. And that's because I wanted to make a point, but not really a point as much as a feeling. I wanted you to feel what it was like to see the unexpected, or feel the unexpected, I should say. Now, you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you felt confused? How many of you were struggling to understand what I was saying? How many of you were kind of upset with me that I had started in German and not in a language that you were, expecting? Right? There's a lot of different feelings that come with unexpected change. And that's one of the things I want you to keep in mind as I'm giving my talk, because I've experienced a lot of unexpected change, which gave me all of those feelings and at a very extreme level. So before we go on, I want to do a proper introduction. I've now said it 3 times. My name is Kate Pan. I love soldering. I make the internet. And I used to give a lot of talks about bears, glaciers, volcanoes. Today, I'm going to give you a slice of my life. And I'm hoping to tell you how I overcame some of those challenges that I had in my life, especially in the last couple of years. And I'm hoping to give you some tools that you might be able to use when you're overcoming change in your life. Now, please be aware that this talk sounds like it's my entire life. It is not, I promise you. And please be aware that I have viewed these changes with my own perspective. This is my own perspective. These are my opinions. This is how I feel about it. And then lastly, I want to warn you that I will be talking about depression and how I overcame that. So if that's a trigger for you, I don't mind if you leave at all. I just want you to be aware that that might be what happens in this talk. So a lot of us this conference have talked about change. And I think we can all agree that change is the only constant. And when I was writing the CFP, the proposal for this talk, I really wanted to give talks about bears and glaciers and moose, things that overcome change in a big different way. And I wanted to be really funny and exciting, but then I changed my mind, and I continued my mind. And I realized that I wanted to give a talk about my changes in my life, and that's what I was doing right now for myself. So we've seen a lot of definitions for resilience, and this is my definition for resilience: not giving up when you really, really want to. Right? I really wanted to give up writing my paper, my proposal, I should say, but I didn't. I kept doing it because I feel like I'm putting resilience into my life. One of the ways that you can be resilient in your life is through self-care. And that self-care, for me, includes self-talk. And I like to tell myself, you've probably already heard it, that I'm doing what is right for me right now. I say this a lot to myself, and you might hear me say it a few times even during this talk. So let's rewind all the way to when I was 8 years old. That's me, yes. I was the first junior ranger of Orange County, California. I was one of the fortunate kids who knew what they wanted to be at a really young age. I even remember my mom had wanted to find a geology club for me, but there were no geology clubs for kids my age. And so the closest thing she could find was someone who had just started a junior ranger program. So every other weekend, I went out to the park, I hung out with my mentor, and we gave tours to public. I remember giving this tour to 5 people, where I was like, and this is the lemonade berry tree. This goop tastes like lemon. Right? I was all in it. Middle school came around and they said, okay, we want you to do a research paper on what you want to do as an adult. And I said, well, I want to be a park ranger. Turns out, good park rangers speak a foreign language, often German. Because apparently there are a lot of Germans at the national parks too. So I learned German, believe it or not. And then I went to school in Fairbanks, Alaska. And when I chose that school, my mom said, is that the only school that you're applying to? I said, yeah. I'm going to the last frontier to become a park ranger. So I became a park ranger. There's me in uniform. I'm actually at Katmai National Park. It's mostly known for its bears. And if you don't know Katmai National Park, you may recognize this photo. This is the bear catching the salmon coming with the waterfall. Yep, that's Katmai. You may now know the Katmai National Park from the large bears. They had a competition about big bears. I don't know. They did that. And then I went on and I continued to be a park ranger. I was a park ranger for the Tongass National Forest. That's a national forest in Alaska that's 17 million acres. And so I was actually a ranger on the ferry there, so that I could go up and down the national forest and talk about ravens and glaciers, bears, and natural history. And then I ended up at the Mendenhall Glacier and talked about more glaciers and bears and volcanoes and all of those special things. And then I ended up at the Desert Botanical Garden. And this is in Phoenix, Arizona. And by this point, I had met the man of my dreams. He was brilliant. He was funny. My family loved him. Just perfect. He's just perfect. And in 2014, we actually got married, and it was amazing. And everything was going so well. I had just everything. I had a supportive family. I had my husband, who was amazing. I had a career that I had wanted since I was the age of 8. Well, then in this crazy turn of events, as things happen, unexpected change, I had no job. And I had no prospects for jobs. There's not a lot of jobs for environmental education in Phoenix, Arizona. And so my husband said to me, well, what do you like doing? I said, well, I like doing research. I've always been the code 2 when it's new technology. And, I just gave him this laundry list of things that I like to do, thinking, what is he going to find for me? I can't imagine anything. And he says, you have a lot of coding? I don't know. I took a coding class in Austria when I lived there. I figured I liked it because it was mostly in English. Right? So then I just Googled, learn to code. Of course, what came up was Code Academy and code.org, and I did the Hour of Code, which is really programming for fourth graders. Right? I fell in love. I was amazed. I was like, this is great. I can make a little robot move, and it does the logic that I tell it to do. And I was madly in love with coding at this point. And I decided to visit a friend of mine in the Desert Botanical Garden, and I was telling her about my newfound love of coding. And she works GIS, so she's mapping all the cacti in the garden, which is really cool. And she says, you ever heard of this little thing called meetups? And I was like, no. What is this meetup thing you talk of? So I, of course, went to meetup, put in tech, Phoenix. There are a lot of meetups, as some of you may know. And I tried to go to all of them. And because I was like overcoming this change of career, right? Like I spent my whole life becoming a park ranger, and now I'm becoming a developer. Like that didn't make sense. So I did a lot of things to help me overcome that change, like taking these notes. I would write a word down and Google it later until I got enough courage to start asking questions. And when I started asking questions, then all of a sudden, I was getting invited to actually plan some of the meetups that I was going to, and just everything was falling into place. I was doing what was right for me right now, and I was telling myself this mantra: I'm doing what is right for me right now. And I finally felt like my career was back on track. So much so that I asked where I was doing the meetups, do you have something available for me? And they said, yes, we would like to have you intern as an HTML email developer. So I became a developer. I was very excited. I had everything again, right? I had my career, I had my husband, I had my supportive family, right? In July of 2015, just maybe 6 months after I had gotten this job at Melt Media, my husband and I went on a trip to Alaska where we had first met. And somewhere on a highway at a small cafe in Alaska, he told me that he had been taking estrogen for 6 months and no longer wanted his penis. And I had no idea. I couldn't even fathom. When I met him, he was about to join the Navy. He went to the gym all the time. He built this car. He did everything that was very masculine. And so it was really hard for me to grasp what she was telling me. But after a lot of discussion, I realized that she couldn't be that person anymore. She had to be who she is inside. This is a really hard time for me because I so desperately wanted to celebrate her and her courage to become who she's supposed to be, but I was experiencing a lot of loss. So much unexpected change in my life. And loss of what I thought my life was going to be like. And I turned to online groups, and what I found there was a lot of anger. And I just didn't want to be angry, right? I wanted to celebrate her. I wanted to be happy for her. And I couldn't have been happier when we started coming out to friends and family. Some friends ghosted us though, and her family was super supportive. My family, I don't know if they were just following suit with my grief, but they weren't as supportive as I would have hoped either. And I fell out of favor with my family, or my family fell out of favor with me. And this was really challenging. And I realized that what was right for me right then was finding a therapist. So I found a therapist, and I was on the right track. Right? My therapist helped me do meditation and journaling and talk out loud, and I felt like I was really getting back into the groove. And maybe, things weren't quite right with my family yet, but my career was still on track, and I had my wife now, and I was doing what was right for me at that time. So much so that I was like, great, we're going to move forward with my career. And I asked my employer, I said, I'd like to become a software engineer now. I'm done being an HTML email developer. And they said, that's great, Kate. But we just don't have the resources to do that for you. And so I started to look into boot camps, and I found this boot camp called Ada Developers Academy. It's in Seattle. It's a free camp for women and people of non-binary gender, underrepresented genders. You do 5 months in class, and you do 5 months in a paid internship. And I thought, this is perfect. I looked at the acceptance rate. They get about 400 applicants every year and only accept 48. And so I thought, never getting in, forget it. Well, then of course what happens? I get this letter. So we'll see you in February, right? It's like, okay, I guess I'm moving to Seattle. So I talked to my wife and I said, okay, what do you think? Do you think this is an opportunity I should take? And she said, yeah, I think we should move to Seattle, and I think that's really great. Until when we moved to Seattle. Turns out that it was too much change for her. So I lost everything. Not only was I starting from scratch with coding, I didn't have my life. I still wasn't in a good place with my family. I didn't have my therapist. I had nothing. Or at least that's how it felt. And it was such an unexpected change for me that really hit hard. And it was days that sometimes I would go and just cry in bed. Right? Didn't want to get up. And I was so lucky that I had already taught myself self-talk. And I told myself, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to go to class. I don't care if I learn anything. I don't care who else is there. I'm just going to go to class because I'm doing what is right for me right now. It was okay for me to be sad. It was okay for me to be angry in those moments. And luckily, I have great neighbors who started to notice that I wasn't in a good place. And they introduced me to this lovely worksheet. I think is the name of the worksheet on here. I don't think it is, but I have it in my resources at the end. But it just asks, have you showered? Have you hydrated? Have you eaten? Have you gotten dressed during the day? Have you cuddled with a living being? You know, you are stronger than you think. And from there, I learned about grounding. Where it was like, if you can't do what you're doing right now, if you can't keep yourself together, think about being present. Think about being in the moment, right? Find 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing that you can taste, right? Be present, be in the moment. And of course, during all this, I have no therapist. So I decided that what's right for me now, because I've had a bit of change, is finding a therapist. So I found a therapist, and I was telling myself, I'm doing what's right for me right now. And over time, the right thing changed. And my therapist and my friends around me helped me to find tools to help me overcome some of the change that I was experiencing. So in time, I started journaling. And there's a lot of different ways to journal. You can do reflection. That's where you write it all down, and then you look back over it, much like a personal retrospective, and see if you can piece together what you've learned about the experience that you're going through. There's gratitude lists. That's what you're thankful for. And recently, I found out about ingratitude lists. This is like when everything has gone to hell, and you're just like, I can't even be grateful for anything. I'm just gonna write down the things that make me angry. And that is completely okay. If that's what helps you in the moment, then that's what helps. And that's what helped me, is doing different types of journaling. Then I started to surround myself with mantras. I am enough. I am loved. I am worthy. I found the latest Kate, who does these really terrific drawings with some little mantras, with things that might improve your mood a bit. Kind of reconfirm that you're doing what's right for you. I started doing a little bit of meditation and yoga, and because I'm not very good at it, I quit doing it. Here's my neighbor's dog going, so are you gonna do your meditation today? But like I said, I changed, so I did it for a little while, and that no longer worked for me, so I quit doing it. And then I surrounded myself. I reached out to friends. And all my friends wrote letters to me. And it was so nice to get something in the mail to kind of cheer me up. And they were very supportive. And I was glad that I had reached out to friends in that moment. And I surrounded myself with things that I thought might make me happy. Let's see, there's the moose that was sent to me by a friend from Fairbanks. Yes, you can send that in the mail. She did not send it in a box, she sent it as that moose. It has an address on the side of it. It's very nice. Fantastic artwork from a friend of mine about how the world is my oyster. And then Ponsly, my robot that I built a couple years back. Ponsly is a terrific robot. Maybe one day you'll meet him. I created this clipboard wall that changes with me. So as I have new mantras or as I have new sayings or photos, I can switch them out. This really helped me feel that my walls would change with me as I was becoming a better me. I bought some things for myself. I bought the ring that I'm wearing because, the places you'll go. I love traveling, but also I thought it was a really good mantra for the change that I was undergoing and the person who I was becoming. I also bought this book. This is also the latest Kate. Those are all a lot of her little mantras. I bought a plant one day. I was like, you know what, I'm feeling good. I think I can take care of something else. Maybe not a pet. Let's get a plant. Let's start there. Plant is doing well, by the way, just in case you're wondering. And I played music. I played music that I could dance to, music that inspired me. I played music that just felt right at the time. I dove really deep into a project. Yeah, sure, Ada kind of helped me with that. My academy helped me with this. This is a light-up sign that's connected to the internet. It's very exciting. But just diving deep into that really helped me gain some of my confidence back that I needed. And all this time, of course, I'm saying to myself, I'm doing what's right for me right now. And as I continue my journey to overcome the change that I've experienced, I know that I'll finally get to the point one day where I'm starting to fill up my positivity savings account. What do I mean by that? I read recently that actually the things that you do that make you happy and that surround you by happiness, this is actually practice for when something unexpected comes your way. When something unexpected comes your way, you go, oh, I can just kind of take from my positivity savings account and make myself better. So even in the good times, these are tools that I can use. Now, if you're looking to help someone who is maybe feeling a bit down, that also helps with your positivity savings account. My suggestions, and by no means am I a psychiatrist or anything to that effect, but some of the things that helped me were having my friends write. I had friends who asked questions like, what do you like doing versus what are you going to do? How are you doing? This is one of my favorite questions at the moment. How are you? Real answer. Sit with them. Invite them out, even if they don't want to go out. These are some really great ways that you can help people who are maybe going through change themselves, if you're not. So it doesn't matter what stage of the process you're in, whether it's pre-change, change, or post-change. It's important to know what those tools are that might help you through change. And it's important to do what is right for you. So if you decided that me speaking German at the beginning of this talk was too much, and you tuned me out completely during my whole talk, that's okay, because you're doing what's right for you. If you decide later, you're like, oh, maybe I'll watch Kate's talk, and you enjoy it, and that's great, you're doing what is right for you. It is so important to do what makes you feel better, not what someone says makes you feel better. So before I end, I'd like to say just a thank you to everyone who's helped me be resilient and help me do what is right for me right now. Because that help in making me resilient helps me make teams resilient. And when a team is resilient, then a complex system can be resilient. Thank you.